Hey there, fellow creators. Ben here from Cinder Studios, and welcome back to another How to Be an Artist series. I don't know what number we're on at this point. I've lost track. But today we're talking about commissions. Stick around. So for a long time, I've been wanting to make a video about when to take commissions and when not to take commissions. And with a recent hiccup in my career this past week, I thought this is a good time to talk about this and talk about commissions in general. I think that's a worthy topic for this series, and I'm actually surprised I have not talked about it in the past. So, as a little backstory here, I'm not going to name names or anything, and I certainly wouldn't, because this is, still a more than likely a future client. But I was contacted by an individual who came in from out of town and saw my work at Red Fishbowl, and was very interested in doing something more customized. Things moved forward. I, definitely very serious. I was very excited because it would have been the single largest and most lucrative commission I've ever taken on. And I don't normally take on commissions, period, so I was actually rather excited for this. Ended up having a fairly long conversation with the client, who seemed to be, definitely very on board until we got to price. Now, price is one of those things that varies considerably from artist to artist, of course. I do think that this person had a number in mind already, and most people who are buying things do. Like if you're buying a computer, or if you're buying art, or if you're buying an appliance, you're going to shop around. You're going to find the best price, and absolutely, I certainly wouldn't expect someone to not do that. But when I quoted a higher price, it was like, oh, I didn't think it would be that much. And it wasn't an immediate no, but it was one of those ones where it was like, oh, I have to rethink this because I was expecting the price to be this, and my price was this, So it is one of those things where it's like, do you just let them negotiate you down price-wise, or do you stand your ground? And in this case, I stood my ground because it's one of those ones where, as much as I really could use the money, it is something that it was like, no, this is what I feel comfortable charging for this. Which then, of course, got me thinking of exactly what that is and what that means. And I do think it's important to, as much as you can, communicate what kind of costs go into a project, especially to a client of any capacity. If you're going to be like, if someone's going to say like, oh, why is it, this price and not this price? I was like, well, and this was part of the discussion as well. I would just be like, okay, I know based on the sizes we're looking at, well, these are custom built stretch canvases, so I will have to order the materials. I will have to, prep them. These won't be off the shelf sizes. So I'm stretching and gessoing and doing all of that work, which I do for most of my projects anyway, but that one in particular more so. The piece for this client would have been a series of 3 as a triptych, which is a lot of work. So 3 different canvases. Then we got to think shipping costs. So we're looking at bare minimum $30 to $50 per individual shipment. It's 3 shipments. That puts us probably well over $100 for the shipment. Materials in terms of the stretcher and in terms of the canvas, which I do already have, but I did pay for it initially. So we factor in those costs, and that puts us another $100 on top of that for straight up materials, and not to mention then the labor costs for everything. So you're looking at sketches and more sketches. For any given commission, I usually do just sketchbook work as well as the digital concept, which I don't do for my day-to-day painting as often anymore, but I definitely do it for commissions because I want to give the client the best picture possible, and any changes right up until I start on canvas. I also ask for like 50% down. So, and in this case, I was like, I won't ask for the 50% down payment until the sketches are done and I'm through that process and I know we're really going for it. But I also won't do a bunch of sketches without having the go-ahead of, yes, I'm serious about this. So I didn't even get to the sketch phase after I was like, it's probably going to be about this much. This is where I'm comfortable with. So I'm a little disappointed because I definitely had some really cool ideas planned for that, but obviously respecting the wishes of the client and their particular needs, and you just kind of have to, let that happen. And unfortunately, this one kind of fell through. But then it did get me thinking that I do, and conferring with a friend of mine, and she was like, people don't really think about how much work really goes into creating a custom commissioned piece of work. And I would definitely say the canvas prep and the sketches are a huge part of that. People think it's like, oh, you're going to make a painting, I'll just grab this canvas I have in the corner and make you something on it. It's like, I don't have infinite sizes. There are labor costs beyond just brush to canvas time that are included. And it's something that I think a lot of people, even artists, don't think about when they're factoring in prices. I know a lot of young artists will start out like, oh, I'll draw you this thing for $20, and that is a fine way to start. I'm not railing against that or anything, or harping like saying, hey, don't charge $20 for your commissions. You can charge whatever price you want. Depends on your skill level and age and how long it takes you to make a piece, everything like that, or what you're comfortable charging. If I was drawing something for somebody and I was like 16, then yeah, $20 sounds reasonable. But now, being an experienced painter of 23 years, and art experience beyond previous to that as well, the fact that I do sell a couple pieces a year and have a general expectation of where those pieces sell at, much smaller ones, of course. I have to factor that in too. Like if somebody's coming to somebody who doesn't paint commissions and say, I definitely want something from you, there's a supply and demand thing. So, the business side of it is also something to think about, and like knowing exactly how in demand you are, and being able to. And that's also why a lot of other artists charge thousands of dollars, because they might only be selling, 6 paintings a year, and the 6 paintings that they sell a year need to make up their entire income. There's that factor, So there's definitely a lot of things to consider, and I wanted to share this story as well too, because this also happened this week. I think a lot of people also don't really know how to contact artists in a lot of ways, and this could be a future video for sure. But I think I actually have it on my. If I haven't made it already, I really don't know. But on my board of how to talk to artists, and part of it was like, oh, if you go to a convention or something, it's like artists are just regular people, just talk to us. But there is a level of tact you need to go to if you're going to contact an artist for any kind of commissioned work. So I received a message on Instagram earlier this week from an older gentleman, at least I assume. It's Instagram, it's fairly anonymous. It could very well have been a spam account. I don't know. But I do think this this individual was quite interested, but not going about it the right way. So it was basically like, hey, can you do a pet portrait? And first it was like, hey, can you do commissions? And I said, I don't usually do commissions, but I can make exceptions. He's like, cool, I would like to have a picture of my pet. And I'm like, don't really do pet portraits. And I was thinking, I'm like, is there anything on my Instagram page that would make people think that I would do that? And the answer was no. There's literally nothing in like the 4 years I've been on Instagram that would indicate that I do pet portraits. And I pretty much said that, politely, of course, but I was like, hey, don't really do this. Do yourself a favor, research, what other artists are doing on Instagram before you just like, hey, I'll pay you to do this. He responds back with, oh, can you do a portrait of me then? And I'm like, okay, I don't do people at all. And you would know this if you looked at any of the stuff on my page. So, again, I reiterated, do yourself a favor. If you're going to contact an artist for a commission, you have to do your research first. You can't just be like, oh, there's a random artist. They'll be able to do the work. No, that's silly. Especially for someone like me whose work is more distinct and specialty. I mean, if you're an artist that can break down style and paint paint or draw in any visual style, realism, cartoon, you name it, then that's great. And those people's art on their Instagram profiles usually reflect that. Mine does not. So this person definitely, I don't know if they'd heard about me, they just seen like 1 or 2 pieces and didn't do the research or what, but it did strike me as humorous, to say the least. And especially that this was also happening at the same time as the other project. But there is I think definitely a precedent, especially for a lot of artists, to be like, just take on all the commissions. You're never allowed to say no. And that's what originally inspired this concept of talking about commissions, was you have to be able to say no to commissions. Just because people are waving money in your face and saying, take my money, make me art, doesn't mean that for either your career or for your own mental and physical well-being, it's a good idea to just take on all the work. You need to be able to say no and be like, nope, sorry, that's not something I do, or I don't feel comfortable doing this project, or in the case of this past week, I don't feel comfortable going below a certain price point. And that's perfectly okay. Being able to, protect the integrity, your own artistic integrity, as well as the integrity of the work you make, is really, really important. And I definitely want to drive home that idea of integrity, because that is something that, especially on the internet, I think gets lost a lot. Many artists will sacrifice their own needs, their own production, their work. Sometimes, unfortunately, will sacrifice their own moral compass just for the sake of the commission, and that's something I don't condone, and I don't cross those lines, because that's one of those things where it's like I have enough self-respect for myself, and I also have enough self-respect for my clients, whether I know them or not, whether they contact me through Instagram or email or in person or what have you. I have too much respect for them as individuals to take a project that I wouldn't be comfortable with, would either deliver late or subpar in that sense. I'm not going to take on a project that I know that I couldn't do at the risk of just taking money from people, because that's gross and unethical. So I also want to generally, just at the end here, because I've been talking about how I approach these commissions, but I also, again, almost never take commissions ever. I do want to talk a little bit about why. So part of it is a sense of, I think, artistic vision versus vision of clients. And any artist that works professionally, especially studio artists for big companies, will know that your individual goals for a project don't really matter. You just have to do what the client wants. I've never fully really liked that. I've definitely had a few projects that I've was brought on board for, but stepped away from because I'm like, look, this is not. I'm not comfortable with this. There was a mural project a couple of years ago at a business that no longer exists, thanks COVID. But the idea was, it was like a bunch of reference materials laid out, and it was like, we want you to do a collaborative piece with this other artist in the style of this other artist, and incorporate these things and paint this, paint this, paint this, paint this. And within 5 minutes, I started stepping back, and I'm like, this isn't for me. I did go home. I basically resketched the idea in the foundation of the idea, brought it into a completely new visual style, something that I would be comfortable with. And I said there was an intermediary between the actual client and the artist in this case, and I went to the intermediary and I said, look, these are my sketches. This is what I'd be comfortable doing. If this is not okay, this isn't the project for me. I'm stepping out. And I did. I stepped out. Some artists stepped in, and they got that project. But for me, I was just like, this is not doing it for me. And part of it is motivation is really hard for me in general. But if I can't get excited to work on a project, I'm not going to put not any effort, but less effort. It's not going to be work that I would feel is my best. And if I can't get on board and excited to work on something, it's going to be such a drag. And I definitely don't want to put myself through that, and I don't want to, again, talk about integrity and ethics. I don't want to deliver to any client work that I don't feel good about. So generally, for that reason, and for the it's mostly just that idea of like, paint this, paint this, paint this, paint this. And the couple of commissions I've taken in recent years have been less of that and more of, we love your work. I want to see either this thing in your style, or I want to see just make something up. The one I had a couple years ago was the only direction I had was one of your landscapes using primarily the colors purple and green. That was this. Interesting piece. Lighting probably could have been a little better, but I was happy with it. The client was thrilled. So, that one worked out. The next most recent one, and it's also the only most recent one, which is now, I think, 4 or 5 years old, was the Risk of Rain 2 painting. So this was a scene based off of a video game that I have never played. But the guy really loved my work, and he's like, I want to see this space but interpreted through how you paint it. He gave me a really small picture, but it was like a screenshot off of a wiki page or something. And what was interesting about that project, because like, if it was a game that I had played and been familiar with, I would be like, okay, I know what that world is like. I actually ended up, over the course of an afternoon, I sat down and watched 2 hours of gameplay footage that people put up on YouTube and stuff. That way I could get a feel for what's where in the world and what the atmosphere is like. The final piece is notably similar to a fairly standard screenshot in the game, something that's widely available. But I had to put myself into that world in order to better understand the world and how to paint it, which was really fun, because I mean, it's game that I've played or not, it is fascinating for me to dive into game worlds like that, and it's why a lot of my work is inspired by video games in that sense. But again, those were exceptions to the rule, and I've definitely had people come to me, like, hey, I want you to paint this thing, and I'm like, cool. But they start dictating color. It's like, oh, I want it to be this time of day, or I want it to be this thing, or oh, can you put one of these things in it? And I'm like, no, because now what you're asking for is not what my vision is. So if I take on a project, it has to be something where the client understands that and lets me as the artist, put my vision forward. Because if they just want me to copy someone else's work or do something like that, I'm like, no, it's not what I do. I would like and hope that for any given commission that I would take on, the ideas are fairly vague. Because I would think that the client should trust me as the artist to do my job of designing that world. So I'm just realizing that was probably way more rambly than I was expecting it to be. But definitely some things on my mind. Again, if my client who from this past week happens to see that, hi, not trying to shame you, but purposely leaving your name out for obviously legal reasons. I don't want to get sued or accused of slander or anything like that. Like, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, I know it's commissions. The allure of a commission is very good, but when it comes down to the nuts and bolts of it, I don't think everybody is always on the same page to cost of labor and stuff like that. So there is a notable disconnect between artists and clients in that sense, and there always has been, but it does make for an interesting world if you're an artist who does primarily commissions. But for someone like me, I don't. I just I paint when I want to, and that has worked well for me. So if you guys enjoyed this rant today, go ahead and hit the like button. Let me know your thoughts and comments below regarding commissions, and am I completely unfounded in these opinions regarding the process? If you want to see more of the How to Be an Artist series, the playlist will be linked at the end of the video. Also, if you search on the channel for How to Be an Artist or Philosophy of an Artist, you should find more of these videos if they aren't already available in the sidebar as recommendations. But yeah, I gotta get back into this piece. I'm in the last like 20%, but it's still a lot of surface area to cover. So thanks guys for watching. Hit subscribe if you're not already. Check out my socials in the description box below, including the community Discord. If you're interested in seeing more of my work and hearing about my thoughts in the studio, you can sign up for my newsletter on my website. And this has been reminding you to keep on creating, and I will see you guys next time.